Started. Mostly familiar faces. Hello. If you don't know, my name is Sarah Duquette. I'm with the Executive Office. I'm going to be facilitating the meeting on behalf of Carmel Angela, who can't be here today. So what we're going to start with is a roll call, and Amanda can go ahead and start. Andy Bayoski. Sarah Gotcha. Here. Casey O'Neill.
Here.
Chantel Simone Pietre. Brent Powell. Courtney Bailey. Del Potter. Ellen Drell. Frida Bustad. Gavin McDonough. Janine Coleman. Hannah Nelson. Here. Jen Procacci. Jude Tillman. Here. Julia Carrera. Yes. Karen Byers. Here. Kevin Shee. Marvin Levin. Matthew Mendicker. Monique Ramirez. Patrick Sellers. Paul Hansberry.
Here.
Amen. Ron Edwards.
Present.
Stuart Marcus. And Susan Tibbin.
Present.
And we have two newcomers. Can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, so my name is Nathaniel Buttrick, and I actually was going to be coming to the 3:30 working group, which you and I wrote out here together, and so I wanted to be a part of it.
Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
My name is Carla. Julia.
Welcome.
Welcome. Stick into it.
Andy, you've been here before? Have you? Yeah. Yeah. All right, so I'm going to meet staff. Oh, yeah. Brent Schultz.
Here.
And if you don't know, Mary Lynn Hunt. Wait. Yeah, let's let Brent introduce. Yeah, go for it.
Hi, I'm Brent. I'm the Planning and Building Services Director.
Yay!
All of 20 or something days, I'm learning all about the first meeting with you guys. I'm learning about it. Our second. And I've been reading it all.
And then
Looking forward to meeting you all.
Siobhan Holmes.
Present.
Sarah Duquette. Here. And Amanda Walter. Here.
Your last meeting.
I think it might be.
No.
I was told to say it is. Yes, it is. No, Jesse's going he's going to do the state, and Danny's going to do the notification.
Wait, I'm sorry. Jesse's going to do the
State environment.
Okay.
And Danny will do the notification.
Oh, got it. Great. Cool.
So just kind of give a little update of where we were and where we're at. So at our last meeting, we finalized the comment letter that went to the state on the regulations. And we also reported out to the Board of Supervisors, and they approved moving forward with that letter, and we went ahead and sent it. Now we're in the process where the state's kind of reviewing the comments, and we're waiting for them to come out with their comments on the comments, and we'll see from there how much change they make and what the noticing will be going forward. So with
timeline on that? Do we know?
if they make, and correct me if I'm wrong, so Hannah, I think you also, if they make not significant changes, I think it goes out for 10 days, 15, and then if they do make significant change, then it goes out for another 45. So we'll see where we are with that. So there is a possibility that we might have another round of letters.
I think that my sense is that we need to do some letters with the it's very likely potential that some of the rules might be considered insubstantial, but not necessarily in keeping with what we had recommended previously. So we would want to submit another bite at the apple.
Yeah.
So I think that it would behoove us to plan for that.
And that
rapid response?
kind of leads me into what's the status of the group. So we've done that letter. So moving forward, what are kind of the things you want to accomplish, and what's our time frame of looking at that?
Yeah.
So
I have a couple of things.
we'll start with Hannah, and then we'll go to Karen, and then Ron.
So I think that at this point, it makes sense to coordinate with the portion of the ad hoc committee's work that did dovetail into the differences between state and local recommendations. I know that officially they were not dealing so specifically with the quote-unquote state issues, but at the same time, from our lengthy meeting with the ad hoc, I know that there necessarily is overlap, so I think that a coordination regarding that rollout would be helpful. And there are some specific subtopics that I think need to be addressed, but these are more logistics and not necessarily policy decisions, both at the local level and the state level. And some of them include the termination of the local track and trace as the state track and trace is picked up. Another one of immediate concern to me is engaging the state in the logistics of how the provisional licenses will work, because I'm a little bit concerned that some of the language in the statute may create a logistical nightmare for us, because people are changing, as Siobhan can attest to, because I email her every other day, changing license types or something about it, and the language of the statute, I believe, kind of requires it the exact same language. So I think that there's work around that.
And I definitely, when we go to the next one for Legend update, I want to touch on that specific bill and give you an update of where I'm at, and Siobhan probably also where she's at, and what we're trying to do.
Perfect. So that was just kind of a subtopic in terms of logistics and coordinating with the state on logistics. And I know that Siobhan has done a really good job of coordinating, so you, of course, Sarah, of coordinating with the state, but I think that it's worth figuring out the list of logistics that maybe non-staff members might have pressing questions about, that we want to make sure that if there are any policy decisions regarding that, if we need to come up with recommendations for the board to consider, blah, 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 blah. There was one other thing, and now I'm not remembering it, so I'll pass it off to Karen, and if I think of it, I'll come back later.
All right, well, some of what I would have mentioned has been mentioned, just, to be prepared for the non-permanent regs to come out anytime now, and be prepared to respond to that. And then there's definitely some bills, which maybe we are going to talk about this in the agenda, that we need to be on, and the fact that some, at least one that would affect our distributor license, was an urgency ordinance, so it's already logged. And so the others are just making sure we're on point to match up with what's going to change on January 1st.
So in terms of the timing, does the working group want to kind of move forward with kind of doing something similar for the next round of comments, whether it's the 10-day or the 40 or 15 or the 45?
Yeah.
And how do you guys want to structure that? I think we should kind of sort that out, because that's going to come fairly quickly. Right?
Well, we don't know what to address.
And I think
but in terms of the teams, how you want to structure going about doing,
Well, Ron, you're next.
Well, it would be nice if we had the time, or even the possibility of having a group like this to do it, as opposed to a few of us on the phone for 4 hours going through it. It would be nice if we could spread that load out a little bit. A few of us have done a lot of heavy lifting. Some people have submitted individual comments, but as far as the county getting that organized, it's hard as a timeline, but we could be a little more focused.
So do you want to have, when we have the solid days, you want an in-person meeting?
Do you know what the date is, Sarah? Do you know what the date is that it returns?
Not off the top of my head.
And it's 45 days after the 45-day
So-
original comment period, right?
Yeah.
So, usually they wait.
So it's like, what was the day that we submitted it? My calendar?
Well, the close of the comment period was on the 27th of August, so it's 45 days out from that, I think. So if we could figure out approximately when that is, maybe it would make it easier
Yeah.
for have meetings.
That will be next week.
Seriously? Already?
Right?
45.
So it was the 27th, right?
The
27th, one, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then there was 30 days in September, so that's 35. October 5th will be 40. 1, 2, 3, 4, 45. So 45 would be October 10th.
It's not business day, it's your calendar.
Calendar day.
Yeah.
All right.
So next week. No, Christmas.
Wicked.
But if you guys want to maybe try to do an in-person one, I mean, it's hard to know if it's going to be 15 or 45, but if you want to try to work on a date to meet that third week of October in person, I'm sure we can find a place at the county facility.
Have you seen any notices from the state?
They won't come out until that
Until that
day.
time.
They won't come till
They won't announce till the day
They know.
what you do.
So, no, so what happens is, just so everybody understands, we've already been through the 45-day comment period.
Right.
Then they have to issue responses, their new proposed regulations with any changes. And they have to issue a point-by-point response to every comment that was at all submitted, which is what the roadmap is as to why, if they haven't changed something, they didn't change it. And that's the particular juicy thing to pay attention to, is their item-by-item comment. Then, if what they then changed based on public comment is considered substantial, then it's either 30 or 45 days. And then, but if it's considered insubstantial, it's only a 15-day turnaround for more public comment. And that's where we get into the second bite of the apple on things that might be important. And again, there may be things that we go, you know what, it's not worth it for us to try and move the needle on. It might be for purposes of public record that we want to, but the date that she's talking about in terms of October 10th is when we theoretically will have the comments from the state about the comments and whether they changed things or not, and what they changed, and if it's substantial or insubstantial. And then the cockroach thing.
Could we just meet as if it was going to be 15 days? I mean, isn't that the simplest thing to do?
Sure. Well, we can do a doodle poll if that works for this group. We can find a place at a county facility here in Ukiah. Right. Or if there's a desire, we could do it in one.
So maybe at the end of next week, do you think that that's feasible at the end of next week, since it will be after the 10th?
Well, no, we should know by then. So like Friday the
12th.
12th. Also beautiful. Okay. So I think we have a plan there. We're going to wait, we'll do this one next week, and then this group will come back to me and make the decisions on how you want to move forward with a comment letter, or if there's significant things you want to comment on or not. And we'll move from there. I will say for the next two board meetings are October 16th and November 6th. So those were, depending on how many days, those were when we would go to the board. Obviously, we do have someone with a legislative platform, and we do have a standing legislative item, so if emergency needs to come up and we need to take action, we do have a little flexibility. So, but those are the next two meetings.
10, 16, and what?
10, 16, and November 6th, and November 13th.
And if it's a 15-day turnaround, that means that it would be due on the 25th.
Or the 24th, if they count the day it's released. No, that's
How do you
you're right, 24th.
So
If you're not getting this until Friday before, there's no way.
there's a couple options. It really depends. If we don't have time to go to the board, our office would read it and make the determination if the comments fit within our legislative platform. If we believe it fits within our legislative platform, we can have the chair sign a letter and it can come back for ratification. So it will have, analysis will be, is it similar enough to the letter that they've already approved? And are all these concepts covered in the ledge platform? If we can reasonably say that, then we can bring it back for ratification, because we're not doing anything drastically different than what they've already approved.
also, then I would like the group to make a commitment that if it is the 15 days, that we stick to that requirement so that we can get something in. Okay?
And I just wanted to finish up that one of the things that the state is really seeing where they're at is in working with local governments to make sure that they understand that they have flexibility in some of the rules. And I think that would be helpful in planning and so forth to kind of help us going forward. Staying in contact. A lot of us are spending a lot of time going to the advisory meetings, a lot of the local meetings, a lot of the state meetings, to try to give Mendocino a good say. Because what's really showing up is the rural counties are really at a disadvantage in a lot of these, particularly when it comes to the micro-business, because of the unique zonings. So they're trying to find some flexible ways in working with, you know, in other words, manufacturing. It doesn't have to be all of it. You can narrow those scopes. So, and maybe we can break some of that into our ADA things. It's just an idea of where they're finding problems, because when you compare what urban areas are going through as opposed to rural, it's very easy, and in fact, it was pointed out that, you know, 10,000 square foot micro-business in a city can do so much more cultivation that it just will bury the rural cultivator who maybe is doing only one cycle a year or two. I think it was brought up that some are doing 4 to 5 cycles a year on an indoor situation, which is just crushing the rural cultivator. So those are kind of some things that really are important looking at our area being unique to urban areas to have an advantage.
Joyce? I really want to spin off on what Ron just said. You know, whenever I speak to any state government official or agency, I bring up we really need 2 distinct regulations, one for urban and one for rural California. And they're starting to see the value in that. I don't know how feasible it is in the near future or at any time for that matter, but I think it's an important discussion to keep having. I think Ron has a really good point. And I'd also like to say that there are people in rural, Ron, I don't mean to disagree, but there are people here in northern rural communities that are doing 4 cycles also. So I'd like to use other arguments that might be more strong in regards to what you're talking about, and maybe we could set that as an agenda item at some point in time.
That's just relaying what came out of the advisory.
Right.
Of how.
And its scale.
Right, it is scale.
Yeah, and it's so much different.
So maybe I have an idea. So we're moving forward with 2019's legislative platform. I think it would be a really good idea to have some strong recommendations from the working group of types of things you'd like to see advocated for to make rural cannabis industry a better chance of survival in this new market. So I think that would be really good if we could add that to the agenda in November, since we're going to be going to the standing committee in December for the ledge platform and then to the board in early January. I think it's essential if we can have some pillars for economic development plus cannabis of like we want to see, and we can kind of put them at both areas. So I can add that to the November one, and then we have something to bring to the standing committee in December of what we want to see added for cannabis economic development.
Great.
Yeah.
I think that's brilliant.
Go for it, Anna.
I recall in the meeting in August leading up to the request for the board's letter that we made that very argument. So I'm asking you, is that part of the legislative agenda at this point in time? Because I know that request for the county taking an active role in defending small farmer operations, a small business, as opposed to what goes on in other parts of the state.
All of our legislative platforms are online, and we have 1.5 pages of just on cannabis alone of principles that we support, as well as other areas like economic development. I think that we can even go farther than that and add some more things to it. And I will say, I just got back from our RCRC Association, which is our rural counties, and we have 2 great people. One is Arthur Wiley, who's the chief counsel of our RCRC, and Paul Smith, who's the vice president of governmental affairs, and they are pounding the pavement. They're coming to all the rural counties, what can we do, what can we do? And so we're able to then say, these are the questions that we have, this is what we want to see, and they're pounding the pavement. They're meeting with the Bureau, they're meeting with CVSA, they're meeting with the legislatures. So we have two great people that if we can get some concrete items supported by the board, what we want to see, we have more support to push that agenda the start of a new 2-year cycle in January with the legislature, and obviously in the implementation. And I'll talk a little bit about what we've been discussing with them for the provisional.
It would be really nice to have RCRC representatives to one of these state working groups.
I don't want to make any promises, but we are trying to get both of them here for a visit in November, where we'd also like to take them on tours of local cannabis businesses. So if anyone is willing to have their location as a site visit, let me know. But we're working on trying to get them up here in November while the legislature's out of session.
Good.
So, two things that dovetail possibly into that, but possibly into just a subtopic of our own little working group, I'm not sure which. I see it as a critical component for resolving some of these issues to deal with state building codes. And so that's kind of a bigger animal that also involves a different whole slice of the pie. But I feel that the only way that certain issues are going to be resolved in a way that makes sense for rural communities is if we also are really pushing for it, and maybe through the Rural Counties Organization, there would be enough juice to get some of the changes of the state building code situation.
I think it's possible. I think what's critical is that we take these recommendations and get them in the ledge platform. Because once they're in the ledge platform, it's pretty much we support advocating for these things, and then our ledge platforms go to the associations, and then we work on them. So if these things are important, so maybe holistically try to think about maybe state level policy or legislative changes you'd like to see, and we can get it in there, and that could definitely be one of them.
So it seems like maybe an idea would be to have a agenda item for our working group to flush out a better specific bulletin.
Yeah, I would say recommendations for the 2019 legislative platform.
And what are the dates on that?
The legislative platform is going to go to the standing committee in December, and then most likely it would be adopted by the board either the last meeting of the month of December or the first meeting in January. We try to do it in conjunction for the start of the session.
And then the standing committee will have a meeting before that board meeting?
The second Monday in December. And it's general government, so it's Carrie Brown and Dan Yurdy.
I think, Hannah, to spin off of what you're saying, I think that the California Builders Exchange is the place that you need to get the to get state regulation, building code changes. I mean, that's typically where it comes from. And we have a pretty strong local Builders Exchange group that is interested in cannabis. So someone may want to reach out to Lee and ask him to participate in that.
Yeah, and also along those lines of environmental health, I think that there are some outstanding issues with environmental health regarding composting toilets and other things that we've been waiting for
the Regional Water Board and so on.
And I'm going to pause you. Susan, did you have something to say?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, this is Paul. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, good. I thought my mic was muted here on that end. Susan had to leave, and I have to leave shortly, but we have some things that we wanted to contribute. We've scheduled it. It may or may not be appropriate at this time when you're talking about future meetings, but I just wanted to let the group know that we have drafted, and I think a few of the committee members, your working group members, have seen the draft of it, of a cottage microbusiness license. We put that together. We're meeting with several legislators, the RCRC, which is the Rural Counties Recommendation Committee, the Lieutenant Governor's Office, the Governor's Office on Business and Economic Development, as well as the Teamsters lobbyists and a few other meetings on the 10th and 11th, trying to put this in front of their eyes for the small farmer, for a local, actually we're calling it a cottage microbusiness. There are some things that we believe are all regulatory, but it has to do with the Bureau's interpretation of the statute. But we're going to legislators as well and trying to get this passed through. We're going to the Speaker's office. She has been cooperative with us in the past in putting language together through Legislative Council to put in front of different legislators to see if they could put it on their docket for the next session. Two of the things we're doing would be this cottage microbusiness license, a separate license that is tailored for the small operator. I can send that off to any of the people that want a copy of it to review it. I value all your feedback. The other thing that we've been working very hard on, which was stripped to bare bones because we were told that Governor Brown was not going to sign anything that would dramatically or even materially affect Malcursa. So AB 2215 was for veterinarians to discuss cannabis with pet owners. That was stripped down to almost nothing. There's basically it's First Amendment rights, and it said you can't advertise. We have a very robust veterinary medical cannabis bill that we had put through Legislative Council, and we're going to see about getting that pushed through again, see if we can't get somebody to put it on their docket to author this language. But my email address, I think you all have my email address. If you want a copy of this first draft of the cottage microbusiness license that we're proposing and taking next week to Sacramento, just send me an email and I'm happy to forward it to you.
Paul, can you send that to Cass or myself or Amanda? And when we talk about the Ledge platform, we'll also have that as an attachment.
Say that again a little slower. It's really hard and fuzzy. It sounds like you're talking through wax paper.
Can you email that to me, Amanda, or Cass? And then we'll have that as an attachment for our next meeting, so everyone has a copy.
Okay, that sounds great.
The Ledge platform.
Okay, do you want me to do that, or should I just send it off to everybody that's on this chain of?
You can reply all to everyone.
Say it again.
Go ahead and reply all. Yeah. So just to recap, before we move to the next legislative update section, we're going to do a doodle poll on Friday to determine when we're going to meet in person to address the comment period. And then in the November meeting, we're going to do our recommendations for the legislative platform for 2019. Did I miss anything?
Based on the feedback on the state, what we want. Okay. So the new items we're still going to be talking about. Yeah.
I'm not sure how everybody feels about this, but I really would like to keep the county application process in line with the state. There have been some things I don't want to see us having a county license that you get, and then you're not able to get the state license, whereas right now, the way we are, pretty much if you do all the county things, you're pretty good shape for the state.
Mm-hmm. Are you talking timing, Ron, or are you talking?
I'm talking requirements. There were some questions about water. Yeah, there was just some questions that came up the other day about the water pollution, and I think if we drop that,
Yeah.
Okay, I hope.
No. But I do think that dovetails into the updates from the ad hoc committee, because these are some of the things that we went through to try and make sure that they were in alignment.
And I can do a brief update on that, and then we can move to the next one. The ad hoc did meet with Casey and Hannah, and one of the things that we've been talking about is where can we make sure that things make sense, whether it's definitions or certain things like that. So we are looking at, obviously, when we have the next round of regulations, we'll continue to do that, but where can we be more consistent with the state? So that's happening. We're trying to target a public meeting for the ad hoc at the end of October. So more to come on dates, and hopefully we'll be reporting out and be able to report out hopefully in November, but obviously before the end of the year because the ad hoc dissolve in December. So I'll have more updates. I'll keep you guys in the loop, and when I have certain times and locations, I'll get that out so you can also
And just a quick,
get it out.
so when the board agenda says ad hoc, that's just a standard verbiage, or how, because I came
So
to...
when the ad hoc reports out, it will be,
Every time.
it will be a formalized agendized item. When we do the normal, I'll call them supervisor reports, they report out on their ad hocs, the events they went, but the cannabis one will be doing a formal report out. It will be agendized as the cannabis ad hoc reporting out. So it's not going to be hidden in their supervisor reports.
all the meetings.
So, you're probably the most well-informed, like, county resident of all the things that go on. Stuart?
I have a few issues that I wanted to just bring up. Is this an appropriate time to do that? That I think would be appropriate to address
Or on the agenda?
state regulations.
We were going to move to the amendments that were...
We're going to move to the legislative update portion.
Right.
Got an agenda.
And then if we have some big items that we want to make sure to address for state, but we will be doing the letter to the state. So is this like amendments to our ordinance?
No, just that's the thing that I questioned for the state. In fact, I had a conversation today with an environmental consultant. He was very passionate about a few things that he thinks are really wrong with the state.
Let's hold off, let's get through legislative update, and then we will, if we have time, we'll do that. If not, we can agendize that when we talk about the state letter the next time, if that works.
And also, just so you know, we're in a comment period for the water board rules.
This has to do with that.
So that, I would say,
Conversation.
is probably appropriate for you to deal with making comments to the water board.
Okay. But that's part of state regulations, isn't it?
Yeah, and we're going to get it agendized.
Yeah, I was in a conversation with one of my consultants, and he's very passionate, willing to even advocate for it. He thinks there's some very unfair things with the water board.
Let's hold off on that, let's finish the legislative update, and then if we have time, because I know we have, like 45, what time's the next one? 3? 3, I think. No? 3. This is a 3. Okay. We'll come back to it.
Can you put me on the roll?
Who got you on the docket? So to the next agenda item, Karen sent out a list of things from her association. I also provided you with this, which was in the back. This comes from our lobbyist, but it's a summary of all of the bills that were signed by the governor. It doesn't include the ones that were vetoed. But there's two, obviously, big topic items for your local, which is AB 2020 with events, and one of the most pressing ones for the county is on the last page, which is SB 1459. Yeah, bring them all over. But this document will give you a little bit more detail on all of the different bills that were signed.
Thank you for providing it.
Yeah.
Great.
No, that comes from our,
But I mean, is it on the Cannabis website, or do you have to tweet out?
we can put it up. So I just want to start with 1459, because to us, that's like the most pressing matter. So it was an urgency bill, so it went into effect as soon as it was signed and its provisional license. One of the areas that was really concerning to the county, so a little background, RCRC helped write the original bill, which was drastically changed during the legislative process. And there's this phrase in the bill where you get a provisional license if CEQA is underway. But not details of, well, what does that even mean? From the county perspective, we've been meeting with RCRC, and one thing that we're trying to push really hard is that not only is CEQA underway, your local maybe administrative permit or use permit, that this includes all of your ancillary permits. So your stream bed alteration permit, or maybe the permit you're trying to get from the water board or from the state water board, so that under CEQA way includes all of the ancillary permits. Because obviously, if they don't address the ancillary permits, we're still in the same situation. You can't get an LSA, you can't get an LSA. So our association, they're scheduling meetings and they're meeting directly with CBFA, and we're working, and Siobhan can chime in, but we're working to get more clarity and try to push really hard for the interpretation that it includes ancillary permits.
So I'm working directly with the licensing agent responsible for the Northern California SCSA to determine what they're looking for, as far as to demonstrate how CEQA was underway. One of the things that is, Ron spoke to this earlier, that's beneficial for our process, that is laid out in a way in which you're required to obtain all of those permits, and that they want to look at anyway. So we're pretty confident that most of the people who are attempting to get into our program are going to be fine. It's people who are attempting to get into our program in order to continue growing, but not necessarily seek an annual license. Those are the ones that we determine what you need help with. Is it information, or is it a lack of resource, or do you just why is this happening? I think that what everybody really needs to pay attention to is that the provisional license, I believe, and I'm not sure if the state is actually going to come out and just explain to all of us, but it's primarily going to be administrative, the way it's been explained to us. So there's not going to be a provisional license application, but rather if you have held an active temporary license with the state and you apply for an annual license, they essentially move you into the provisional category without reaching directly out to the cultivator, because there wouldn't be any other additional information for them to get from you. You'd already submitted your annual license and paid for it.
That's not entirely true, because you can also apply for provisional license if your temporary license expired, and they would not be able to automatically move people into that.
So all I can tell you is
they're requiring penalty of perjury also, which is different, so
all I can tell you is what she told me. It was that it was a process that was internal to the state and would require the applicant to do something additional.
Yeah.
If you met the requirements, then you had an active permit, or excuse me, an active temporary license, and you had already, this could be a caveat, you had already submitted an annual application. They would automatically move you into the provisional. So maybe that's...
Yeah, and then there's another category of people, and was it Lindsay that you were talking about? Yeah, and she probably didn't get into this nuance of it. This is one of my concerns, like, geez, we got to figure out the logistics. The way the legislation is written is it specifically said if you have a current temporary or one that's expired. But then there's this other piece that I'm really concerned about, and that is something about, and I have to look it up, the exact language, that it has to match. You know, in other words, they issue the provisional license exactly as, so let's say somebody, and we've had a lot of these people, they have a temporary license, and it expired because, let's say, they were in Covelo and they were waiting for a tribal permission, which has been granted, by the way, everybody, and so they couldn't get their notice of applicability from the water board. Right. So therefore, they couldn't, under the new temporary license application process, they were able to get a temporary license before because it didn't require the extra documentation, but now it's expired and they can't get another one because the rules have changed and you need the notice of applicability now in order to get a new temporary. It's okay, they'd still be eligible for a provisional license, but it has to match exactly what you want the sport doing. And so that's my concern, is since so many people have had to make hard decisions about, am I small, am I the next one, 5,000, 10,000, 2,500, what am I doing? Am I doing outdoor? Am I doing mixed light? Am I There have been changes, and I'm a little bit concerned, not for the category that automatically moves from current, but this whole other category. How are the logistics of that going to work?
Well, especially when people change if a cultivator submits a different proposal or a different operation to the state than what they did to the county, we're only going to know that if we told them.
Well, that's a whole other issue, which I think want everybody to remember to submit updated stuff to the county when you submit your stuff to the state. But separately from that is if your prior temporary license, or even your current temporary license, is different than what you want your annual application to be, the wording of the legislation for provisional licenses might screw it up.
I agree, and I think that's why what Lindsay basically told me is people need to earn temporary state licenses in 2018, period. Because
That's nice when you're taking 2 months to process.
Right. The government.
in 2019, that won't be available.
I will also just side note that add on, one of my concerns is even if we do a year of provisionals, it won't matter because CDFW still won't be done. So I've already kind of started the conversation of as soon as the session opens, we're going to push for another year of provisional licenses because we're still concerned that if it includes ancillary permits, we know that Fish and Wildlife is overwhelmed and with all the different divisions, and we're concerned on the timing, people still might, like if you really start the process, let's say you started this summer, they're really overwhelmed, and so it may not be resolved until 2020.
Right.
So we're already starting the conversation of pushing for legislation that gives us the option so we can do another provisional year if we need to, in case we need to.
We need to.
So,
And is the CEQA issue resolved?
no, we're working on it. We're actually making progress though.
Okay.
We are.
Because I think that...
And not only we're making progress on it, I honestly believe that we're making progress and we're going to have some standardized ways to address it between all of the counties. Because with the CEQA, it's not just Mendocino. We have a number of counties that are in the same situation. And so at a higher up level, the counties are now talking and joining. And I think we're really trying to go for kind of a standard, not a standardized approach, but some type of uniformity. It's not going to be, they're not going to determine things different in different counties. We're all in the same boat.
Is there any sense of timing of that issue? Because I think that everything falls apart if the CEQA thing isn't resolved.
We've been working on it with them for months now.
Yeah.
And from a statewide level, I mean, we're pushing the director of CDFA specifically very hard at the director level.
Yeah.
So we're hopeful. And she's pushing hard at at both directions.
This is for all business.
Yes.
So every license type. And that brings into the complication, but I just want to note that. And have you been working with BCC about this too, or discussing anybody there?
Well, what's interesting there is like a lot of the CEQA stuff plays a larger part in the cultivation because we did a negative ZAC where a lot of the facilities will have already been, is either exempt or already been reviewed in some, there's already been through the CEQA process.
So,
but how will that be
we don't have
recognized?
any official thing from the county.
Yeah, how will that be recognized?
When we apply for our annual one.
Your business? Yeah.
No, they want that, you know. They want some official.
Facility?
Yeah, for anything that's not non-cultivation licenses, they want you to turn in something that indicates, maybe that's your.
I would. No, frankly, we've had very little problems with BCC, and they're pretty much clearing everyone we clear.
I mean, they clear you fund for temporary, but as under the annual, the licensing requirements are more rigorous, and they do say you must show bona fide official CEQA, yada yada, from your license.
So we have to think about too, I'm not 100% sure from the business license perspective, but the issued permit is also demonstrative of you meeting CEQA requirements because of the way in which the administrative permit has been created. So if you went through a use process and the state was asking you, well, what's your CEQA compliance, it would be your minor use permit. So in our case, what we're trying to build off of our ordinance is the requirement for the referral process from the Ag Commissioner to DSW, that's part of it. The other part is the issued cultivation permit, in addition to the possibility of creating another document that basically corroborates what you give to the state as part of the application.
And we can talk more about the facilities, because obviously, if you're getting an over-the-counter permit, the ordinance was adopted with an exemption, and you're covered by our zone. You're not. So we can touch base with the BCC and see what they want to see for those that don't require a use permit.
It's still allowed use.
It's allowed.
There's no secret determination for that. It's built into our zoning code.
Right.
But Jude's right, that we need, like, we give the cultivator something.
I don't disagree with you, but I don't know what that would be.
Yeah. I'll touch base with the team that does the local authorizations, and we can reach out to BCC and kind of get more information, because they haven't really been communicating with us that that's an issue yet. Obviously, we have on the cultivation side, and that's a small portion, because a lot of them require you.
Maybe we could put it on the agenda for the non-cultivation.
No, that one's focused specifically about amendments to the ordinances.
Okay.
Not that.
Let's not lose it, though. I think that's an important.
We can do a check-in. We can add this to the agenda for the next meeting of the check-in, but.
I would just like to get some clarity on a number of groups who are not happy with cannabis cultivation ordinances are bringing up the CEQA issue. Are we solid in that? Is there anything that we need to do more, less of, or we're confident that we're in a good lane?
I think what is the issue is Mendocino, Humboldt, Santa Barbara.
San Luis Obispo, Monterey.
So we took a different pathway, and the state didn't think about it.
Yeah.
And that's where we are with this. Because remember, the state is asking us for information. It's not necessarily required because of the way in which we created our ordinance and what our permit does. So it's more, I think, especially in talking to folks down in Santa Barbara, we have a really good relationship with that ag department. They didn't think it's too long.
And really, they hired out a firm to write a CEQA document. I honestly think that there's a way that we can talk to each other and get it sorted.
I think what Ron's talking about, though, is a separate issue, and as a potential litigation question, I think that you're absolutely right, both Sarah and Siobhan, that the state is trying to do the dance to work out and see how we can draw upon what exists in different arenas to fulfill the CEQA obligation. But that's kind of a different analysis as to whether any local groups, for example, might decide to sue the county based on insufficient CEQA.
I think they do that every time we amend it.
Yeah, they have a chance. So every time you amend it,
And that's
run the
what
risk.
I'm going to say is that I think that there's no way to eliminate that possibility that there's scenarios where there's strength or weakness to CEQA litigation, that I think that because this is such a big issue and that there is proper consideration happening both at the local level and the state level, I don't necessarily think that somebody would be successful in bringing litigation right away. However, anything is possible, and they could put things on hold.
And I totally agree with what you just said.
Okay, well, if I could. So back in 2014, when CEQA first appeared on the cannabis scene, I was at the governor's office asking who's in charge of CEQA at the state level. And it's the governor's office Special Department of Rules and Regulations. And we met with the head guy that wrote the CEQA documents. And he said CEQA is actually local control. We just provide the framework for it. So when you talk about that, Siobhan, the state really doesn't have a lot of authority around CEQA, but they're looking to CEQA for for some kind of footing in all of this. So it goes back to what we were told back then, and it hasn't changed. It's up to your head of planning and building department and what they're doing.
Don't put it on me.
I'm not, just be prepared. And I think that we're in a little bit of uncharted territory because it's very gray, and no one wants to take responsibility because of the potential lawsuit.
And I'll say that, you know, our legal counsel he is tough when it comes to, he is watching that constantly. And you know, when you get into a meeting and John McCown kind of wants to speak with, and Matt just kind of tries to reel him back in, it's like, we gotta be very careful. And he's absolutely correct, so we just, sometimes it seems really tough, and it's like, why are we worrying about that? It's because of the question you just asked about, are we opening ourselves up?
Yeah, and there has to be a risk assessment, essentially.
Yeah.
It's maybe more true for CDFA than BCC. For BCC, I was able to give the May resolution, you know, and proof of sequence.
Yeah, sequence.
And number 18 from the second grade team, you know, what I'm talking about. So I just use that as an attachment, and for a temporary license, BCC was okay with that.
Yeah, that's true for the temporary licenses for CDFA, the other resolution for the cultivation.
Yeah.
But I don't believe that non-cultivation licenses are going to have as much trouble, at least. Especially retail outlets and commercial zones, for example, because they have already been an analysis done under the other zoning ordinances that are applicable.
I'm not concerned with just retail. I'm concerned with all of the micro-business.
Right.
Yeah. And I think I'm not super concerned with our manufacturing either, because we do review on that already. Yeah.
I think I might be a little less concerned too, because I believe that the Mendocino County cultivators have done their job. And they went to Fish and Wildlife. I mean, when you look at the number of applications CDFW has pending for Mendocino County, whether it be the old school paper style notification or somebody self-certified, we have pretty strong numbers. What concerns me more is that only 36% of the people who are in our application process also have active temporary state licenses. That to me is way more concerning, because there's definitely no way we can show people underway if you don't even have a temporary license.
Do you know of that number, does that include people who tried applying but then couldn't get it because they didn't, well, no, not rejected, but didn't have a notice of applicability, and again, not just a tribal issue, but once a certain, after May, whatever it was, when they started requiring the whole packet, and now the water board is really slow in issuing notice of applicability. So if somebody, let's say, didn't know that they had to get the notice of applicability, they submitted their notice of registration or their portal thing, but not the notice of applicability, then they could have gotten rejected and then not been able to apply for a new temporary until they have the notice of applicability.
I don't know. It's more the map. I think it's more the map. My job is 24/7 right now helping people with their maps. They were in the process with the old map, and then the new scientific review map was required, and they got rejected because of the map. I'm telling you,
we can,
it's the map.
Just because the original, like, site plans got rejected, and then...
Because they didn't have the water source, GPS, and the water tanks on it.
So site plans and NOAs.
Yeah.
Yep.
I would say that that's the biggest thing that I see in terms of rejections, and
we've got 3 people doing site plans right now, 24/7.
Is the problem with every permit out here is cannabis or
but one of the things, and this does relate to this kind of working group, which is the difference between local and state, and that is that, so right now, there are at least 5 different types of diagrams that somebody has to do that are different.
That's right.
And so that's a big problem, because people think that once they've done it, let's say for the county, that it should work for the state. And just because it works for one agency at the state, that it should work for the other agency. And every single department. Not only that, what's worse is that if you're, let's say, if people are getting confused, understandably, because they're not used to all the nuances, that if they need to also apply for a building permit, that that's a different type of thing. And if they need to apply for the planning end, that's a different, so all of these topics, and this is true of water stuff, this is true of almost anything in terms of what cultivators have to produce. What I try to tell my clients is that you're going to use the same information for different purposes in different contexts, and you cannot get used to the idea that you're going to use one thing. You might be able to build off of it. But ideally, of course, it would be helpful if we could reduce the number of items. And so one recommendation I would like to float to this working group to consider recommending to the Board of Supervisors is that if we could just simply require the same type of property diagram and premises diagram for the ag department application, with one caveat: we have to add in the 50-foot from the property line, because that's in our ordinance, and that's not a part of the state.
And my question about this. I think one important thing has to, or you're about to.
I think Jesse.
Yeah. And Mark.
I think he informed the folks doing the zoning clearances that the style using Microsoft Paint that a lot of people are using for the state application is just fine. For that. And in fact, we really have tried to open up our requirements in order for it to not be a burden. And so,
or actually, we're trying to ask for more, so have it all when they go to.
That's right.
We have a good.
And we have to have more than.
Mark is online on this. I said, Mark, we need to get you requiring what the state's requiring.
This is the only thing going on, I think, they started doing that.
And I would say, time out really quick. I think one thing that needs to be done is an analysis of, can we make these changes administratively? We we probably don't need board approval to say we're going to do a map a different way.
So can we have on the ag website a section for maps?
That's a really good idea. And building.
Tell more about section for maps.
A section for maps. So we have
the requirements.
These are the maps you're going to need. These are the requirements for this. So that.
Like examples?
Yeah, that would be great.
Does anyone have one they would allow us to use?
Yes.
Yeah, I have a bunch of them for, that I've widened out the information particular to the people or the specific location, but that work that I use as examples. But I think that we might want to wait until the state regulations comments come out, because there are many things that we ask them to change regarding co-locating certain things and stuff like that.
So that might be a good one for an agenda of, I think, since a lot of these can be taken care of administratively, that there's kind of almost like a little focus group, so we can look at the examples and kind of come to a conclusion.
Marilyn, I don't think it's been formally required, but I know Mark thinks and he thinks it's a brilliant idea, because I'm like, look, these guys are saying.
I just know that we'll record, everyone wants something different, so it's just hard making sure that everything each agency wants on one down. That's for a lot of people.
But if you know what they are and you go to the right person, it's really easy, because
they don't all go to the right person.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I would agree with you there.
Or they try to do it themselves. I mean,
I can work with my building today.
Yeah, great.
As far as the things that we can handle administratively in order to here, just so you guys do know, we are looking at the website tomorrow, and we'll probably put a plan together. I would rather get that from all of you as far as what you need more expeditiously than not when it comes to the website. So like this kind of information is really important because the person who's going to be doing that is searching.
Yeah, I would add a little caveat onto the example saying that other agencies might require other stuff, just so everywhere where we could say that to people.
And that it's subject to change, because everything's changing constantly.
Because it's just, no matter how many times you have it in one place, it's helpful to have it in another place. And if there's any way, and I know that Mike Oliphant is sometimes resistant to having this information on the building permit end of things, but to the extent that we can let people know that there are different requirements there than for the planning side or from ag side or from the state or whatever, it would be helpful because they're going to be looking at or going over the counter. They're getting very different information.
So you don't think that the planning and building services, you could use some more instructions in our information?
Definitely.
If you want to meet with Mike and I'd be happy to sit down and start.
I think you got it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
No, Mike's very helpful and very, very, very informative, and he.
I love looking at the plans, I love the kind of things that are needed, and I want to understand what he needs, and, he's got the big building costs.
Right.
Or,
Right. Your just a tiny example was when we tried to get him to make something on the website that was specific to cargo container policies that was not the personal storage cargo container policy, and all I asked him is to please make a note saying, see section whatever for cannabis-related buildings or for non-personal storage. He just wouldn't, that information is available elsewhere, and we're trying to just get it.
So I'm having same conversations from last week when we were staff, and I got the same. Nothing to do with cannabis.
No, absolutely, and that's what I'm saying, it's not just cannabis specific, it's just that I think that the approach of putting more, like, advisories and helpful hints to people, even though I know that there will still be people who read it and it's still just, they don't pay attention, I get that. But the more places that we can make it clear.
So one thing I will tell you, this working group, we've had a building working group already that is now done, and because
Unfortunately. Ag exempt, cargo policy, FAQs.
Yes.
Unfortunately. So to answer.
Corinne, Julia.
Thank you.
I like to do that very much.
This is perhaps not the time to do this, but I just can't bite my tongue, and I want the new director to be aware. One of the biggest problems in our county at the moment for cultivators is that we have no way other than with an expensive F1 building to trim/process product.
It is a problem.
And it's a huge problem. And
I've heard a little bit about this.
I hope that you take it very seriously because it's an issue that will unnecessarily disqualify people. And it shouldn't be that way because it's a really minor and temporary structural use, which does not deserve the rigor that the county and potentially the state, but the county has resisted flexibility in that department. So
I agree.
Again and again, I'll bring it up.
What are other jurisdictions doing with
You'll have to ask Mike. Yeah.
Or call them directly, because other jurisdictions do allow different things. Ag exempt is a great option over in Lake County. You can do ag exempt. Sonoma County, no. Yeah. Humboldt is constantly changing, and they're in disarray right now, so I won't even go there. But Lake County allows ag exempt.
Which I wish we did too.
It's a simple answer.
Or utility structure clearance of some kind.
Structure, right, it has exiting, they have, handicap line, handicap accessible, panic hardware and all that, so the F1.
F1 is engineered and structural guidelines.
So the idea is to make it simpler, not another block. And to dovetail on what you said, no one really knows that you have to, because we get these calls all the time, how, especially right now with the looming blackout period next year for cultivation licenses in Mendocino County. How do we get our license? We've got to get in before the end of the year, and we're in rangeland. They don't know that they have to go and get on the water board and get a permit there. They don't know they have to go to Fish and Wildlife. They don't know about the Cortez list. They don't know about all that stuff. So it would be really good on the website to say, before you apply, this is what you need to do.
So I have a few things about that, because and then I want to try to direct us to state requirements, because I think we're getting a little bit off. But what both of these comments, so one thing that I want to ask is, I agree with you wholeheartedly, the website needs to be updated and more information needs to be easily available. I'm meeting a lot of people who don't know what they have to do because they've been in the dark. And so right now is a critical moment for the amount of staff that the county has available for us to really prioritize who we help, because we can only help so many people in the last few months of the year. With that said, I'm desperately seeking to take our office up to Cocolo and Laytonville to try to reach some of the people who may not know some of the information and who can't get to it online. Because last week when we did the satellite office in Lawrence, it blew my mind how many people came there that don't know anything and don't have access. And so I agree using our website is a good tool. I don't necessarily want staff to have to spend time there instead of being out with people, because a lot of it is more easily communicated one-on-one at this point, especially your sense of urgency. So we need to do both.
Well, you would ask for input from us about your website update.
Yeah.
That's what I was getting at.
Yeah, and I think you're right. Like giving more clear direction, not just forms,
right,
would be very helpful. So I hear that. And with that, when it comes to state requirements, the one thing that I haven't heard from this group that I think is clearly one of the largest obstacles is the state's understanding of what we do on cannabis farms in Mendocino County. They literally do not understand how a 200-acre parcel is broken down to efficiently produce 4 cannabis cycles a year. Like the fact that, and I think the term premise that is used in the regulations ought to be something that this group talks more about, because that's very limiting, especially when you add in the people who want to do micro-business.
We sent in comments.
Yeah, there was like 3, I feel like it was like
So we should get some
2 to 3 pages.
showing this one now. So we should get some back as far as what.
So on all of the state agencies across the board, we submitted public comment. We both individually and county submitted comments, and I would say at least 50 to 70% of the comments related to those.
Yeah, I was.
It would be really great if you want to read those.
I'll get it. I'll send it to you.
And did they, what did the state, was there?
We'll find out next week.
Okay, so we're going to pick this back up.
Week we'll find out. I'll add it to the agenda.
I'm actually kind of baffled at how we're explaining to lawmakers how you eat.
So, very true. Before this, before we end this, I want to touch base on AB 2020, because this is something y'all really like, and the county really pushed for it too, and that's cannabis events at locations authorized by local jurisdictions. So we don't have something formal on the books related to cannabis events, but I'm hoping maybe Mary Lynn, because I feel like you have some.
Events, but we're also in the process of updating that, because it's a very old, back from the 80s, and it doesn't, those days, people didn't have events at their private property. So we're in the process of, the next thing we probably with people holding events without getting proper permits. So we are in this process of updating that, and now we have the cannabis, so that's a whole other thing that we're going to work into. So we will have something, bringing it to the board the ordinance amendments, I probably have the first year.
But see, we want it already in place by the first of the year, you're gonna set us behind other
It will not be in place by the
No.
first of the year because there's nothing we can do right now for an ordinance amendment that will make it.
Right.
Yeah.
Cannabis Christmas party?
Well, yeah, because of the timeline. I mean, even the ad hoc committee doing that with the recommendations, none of that stuff will be,
And there's
it'll be the first of the year before they.
something to be said about the state legislature passing bills and say it's an urgency measure, it can take place right now, than when you're talking about land use and planning and what were regulatory required, regulatory.
Because that's whenever you'll have the opportunity with the state to move forward with an approved, a county-approved facility, and then it takes up to 2 months. You have to submit that to them 2 months in advance. So if I'm going to plan a spring event, I need things in action in January, or I miss that opportunity as an event organizer.
We tell people when you do your events, we want your applications in 6 months ahead of time for a regular event.
Well, then,
So we're
so
not.
then you're basically, it's going to affect the ability for tourism to be effective, which I think is really going to be our stabilizer.
There's going to be some places that are zoned to allow that type
Yeah.
of stuff.
So if I already have a venue that's already allowed,
Depends on the zoning, we're going to get
and they already have event permits, and they already have events there, and they've had successful cannabis events there, and
Well, it
everything.
depends if they have permits, that's the big thing.
So, but not cannabis permits, but permits.
Permits to hold an
They
event.
do, they do. So could I still possibly make that spring timeline?
It depends on what, I can't even address it without knowing exactly what we're talking about. Because there's very few places.
I mean, Kathy's talking about the Black Oak Ranch outside of Laytonville, California.
They have so many.
They're dialed in.
They have so many events scheduled per year, yes, they are busy.
They are, okay, so there, it's
And so
realistic that as an organizer, I can start looking at spring
I don't
events.
really know. From what I read real quickly this afternoon, it's more or less you have to make sure through the state that all the vendors are licensed.
I have a retail workaround, or a retail situation in order to be able to move forward. So I have that aspect of it.
Okay.
And I have it permitted.
We'll look into it, you'll be
Okay.
back next week, and I know.
Yeah, I really don't want to do another cycle.
If you thought again, Dave, the vendor.
Yeah.
We're excited, the board is supportive of this, so we're gonna work hard to get this implemented. Casey?
Just one simple suggestion, very broad zoning, very minimal requirements.
Well, usually with events, you can do them as most zoning, it's just you have to have your permits in ahead of time, and you've got to have, all the right things to do it on a piece of private property. Whether, it's not so much about the zoning, because most zoning will allow private events.
Is there a guide on what type of property, what space you need to be in to do an event, so that if people wanted to start planning, they would kind of have a guideline?
We have our event section,
Okay.
it does a temporary event when I'm running ordinance. But like I said, we're in the process of revamping that because it's just very old. It just doesn't work for a lot of things, a lot of the problems that we're having with events right now.
And I would encourage people to really hone in on what Mary Lynn was saying. Cannabis aside, it takes the planning department approximately 6 months to process the inquiry. So if you think you may or may not want something, let's get it on their radar now.
So I could go ahead and start the process on that level
You
now.
should, if you know.
She's got a location that's already permitted.
So you're.
So the only thing that I want to know is, with reading further into the bill, is to make sure cannabis would be okay to do at Black Oak. It's already permitted to do that. That's what we looked at.
But the general rule is if you plan on even wanting to have a cannabis event, you should do that now, and then that way you would have a chance to review it out with enough time. Rather than later.
Is what we do. We're typically with an event, we tell people 6 months. Is that realistically when they send their applications in now? No.
But I just want to mention that this is also not on-site tasting, and that we can talk about at the next meeting.
That's true. It should be on the next meeting's agenda a little bit further, but thank you for the insight on that. That's very good.
Ledge, yeah, do you have anything to add?
I have one.
Okay.
So, very quickly, I want to make sure that we look closely at the county's progress and language around local businesses. because you've got AB 3261 was just signed in, and I suspect that we're, well, for one thing, I mean, there's two different complaints here. One is, are we in sync with the state, and the other is, what is taking so long with the county, in terms of moving this microbusiness program. I mean,
We have issued some, so I'm not sure what you're talking about.
so what's the %
Oh, I have no idea.
Yeah.
But I know that we have issued some microbusiness.
you have?
And also, there's the next meeting too.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll bring
And when we bring it at the next meeting, there is, a sense of urgency, but quicker we get the recommendations, the quicker we can get the go-ahead from the
Well, well, I just want to make sure that it doesn't fall off of the earth, because as you recall, our meeting, the last meeting, this group, it was the number one priority of concern that people were having trouble negotiating their way in the county with getting mechanisms. And I don't know why.
I don't either. Every single one of them is different, so I don't know.
Yeah, make a general statement. So, okay, so what I'll do is check and make sure that there's a reconciliation between the state language we just got passed and the county language, so that for the right platform.
Thank you.
We're yeah. And then the second thing I have is, I think we would be remiss to not take advantage of the fact that an equity program has been passed, so it's involved in reform. I mean, really,
We're set up for it. We're a low-income community.
That's exactly right. And I want to say, there are people who, Hispanic people, there are people on whose backs the cannabis industry has, black and brown people have suffered and gone to prison so that we can be where we are today.
But
So this is just
I think we
important.
need to broaden that.
Yeah.
I run into a lot of people affected in the same way of jail time, family disruption.
Well, that's the next one, is making sure that the county is funding past convictions as well. AB 1793 and SB 1294. They're offering on a platter technical assistance right off the bat to any local jurisdiction, and anybody who submits for a grant to get money, they assuming the legislature allocates it. It does say that. But I think they will, and especially if there are a lot of requests. So why wouldn't our county, who's now down in the bottom 3, is what I heard yesterday in terms of...
Well, I think that's going to have a lot to do with who managed that program, and that there are elected officials that operate some of the departments that would do that.
Yeah.
Are you talking about the equity program or the conviction?
Convictions. If we're applying for a grant.
No. It's okay. I know what you're getting at, because it's an elected official who it's up to him, and as the convictions go, and I wouldn't hold my breath to see that Dave Eister is going to all of a sudden proactively assist people in getting expunged, but rather I would anticipate that he might even direct resources to filing by July of 2021. 2021.
The voters of Mendocino County.
Well, I'd like to see that.
Right, but that's not...
There's nobody in this room that doesn't know somebody who cannot move forward because they've got some conviction.
Definitely, but Jude, I guess the point is that that's, I think, an absolutely critical thing to organize around, but unfortunately not in this context, because it's not within the power even of the Board of Supervisors. And so I wholeheartedly agree that we should organize around it, and I'd be happy to participate in that, although Dave Eister wouldn't be happy if I participated in that. But I think if we switch to the equity issue, that is something, however, that I think is within the purview of the Board of Supervisors, and grants, and legislative platform.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I think the premise, the equity, a lot of those items, when we come back to A, talk about state letter, B, talk about the legislative platform that we need to address and bring those forward as recommendations to see how the board feels about including that in their priorities.
Right, it's on a golden platter. And then coming back to the expunging thing, I think that every little bit helps. If the board were willing to put out a statement saying, going on record that they, in spirit, agree with the state move to expunge, I mean, what? Who do you think
feel confident, because I'm the criminal attorney for 25 years.
We're in the last 5 minutes, so.
One more thing.
Okay. Four? Okay.
So the last one is the one that I just keep, I'm going to keep this first, and every meeting you are in. When do we get a local coastal plan amendment? When does this happen?
We have Lego working on it as we speak. She called me and left a message today.
Today?
Coming to talk tomorrow.
Got it, so.
See where she's at.
Okay.
It's in the works.
It's in the works, and is there a timeline for
No.
contract?
No, I will not give you a timeline. I have no idea. Well, we're just, I haven't seen anything in writing yet.
So, not over this. And when she issues something in writing, will that be public? Will you be able to see what the schedule report is?
Not until it's ready for public hearing.
Okay, because those of us in the coastal zone are just pining away.
So with that, we have 4 minutes. Karen, your
Okay, so
thoughts?
people aware of the California Community Reinvestment Grant Program through GoGive was just announced by the Cannabis portal last night from California. And it's for the monies that were identified within Prop 64 to go to high-impact communities from, past federal and state drug policy. And it's supposed to go towards job placement, mental health treatment, substance use disorder treatment, system navigation services, legal services to address barriers to re-entry, which is what I think we could bring forward to get Eisner to move forward, and then leakages to medical care, that's not the right word, to medical care. So they're setting up a series of meetings. So the first year, there's going to be $10 million in that physical year, increasing each year. And again, I'll go ahead and do a reply all with this link so y'all can see it. There's a series of meetings coming up starting October 15th through November 29th. The one closest to us, of course, is Humboldt on November 29th. Then you've got San Francisco and Oakland on the 24th. So nothing is coming directly to Mendocino, but this is an opportunity that we've earned, and we need to make sure that we're in line to get these grant monies in order to support Eisner, to remove legal barriers to reentry, et cetera.
So typically, I mean, I don't know the specifics, and they probably don't have the solicitation package prepared. Obviously, that's probably in the works. It is very beneficial for when grants come forward that there are provisions for priorities for people that are considered a low-income community, because really that's the only way we can compete with the large jurisdictions is when there is specifics in the grant that gives us an advantage for being a low-income community, and then also can waive any matches that may be required.
Now, it says communities disproportionately affected by past federal and state drug policies. We don't ground zero on the war on cannabis.
So, two things I have to say about this. One is, this may be something where we want to team up with Humboldt and Trinity together. All of my camp litigation, Green Street litigation, I mean, I spent 25 years fighting the feds in the state on, there are boxes and boxes and boxes of hearing materials that can prove that we're eligible, but I do believe that it may be best to explore the idea of applying for these with, at least with Humboldt, if not also, because all of my litigation stuff, student camp and everything it was the Emerald Triangle.
And it did stress that registration is limited to these different meetings, so we may want to strategize at least at reserving some spaces at ones that are in Northern California. Because it doesn't hurt for us to be at the San Diego meeting saying Mendocino needs the money, so if we can identify people for each meeting, even better yet. So, but I'll do reply all, and maybe we can start some just in-house discussion on who signed up for what meeting and make sure Mendocino's covered in each.
Is it attending by county personnel, or is it public?
It's public, it's public.
So just to recap, it's obvious to me in the room that there's some real desire for grant funding and applying for grants. So I hope that this group can put that on the agenda as part of the legislative platform?
I think so, and the board during budget adoption, if any of you guys were present, included in this year's directive priorities for the development of the budget was that departments were directed to find grant funding to supplement the reduction of general fund use. So
Cannabis is
it is a
opening
directive.
up.
On that note, it's 3 o'clock. You guys will hear from me soon about the next upcoming meetings, and I think I'll see probably most of you in 30 minutes. Thank you, Sarah.
Can we leave our stuff?